Charles Edward Anderson Berry was an American singer, guitarist, and songwriter who became a pioneer of rock and roll music. Nicknamed the father of rock and roll, Berry successfully combined various genres like blues, country, and R&B to create a distinctive and unique sound, which then became the foundation of rock and roll music. Chuck was born on October 18, 1926, to a middle-class black family in St. Louis. Berry had an interest in music from an early age and gave his first public performance at Sumner High School. While still a high school student, he was convicted of armed robbery and sent to a reformatory, where he was held from 1944 to 1947. Berry was the youngest child in his family. He grew up in the northern St. Louis neighborhood known as the Ville, an area where many middle-class families lived. His father, Henry William Berry, worked as a contractor, while his mother, Martha Bell, was a certified public school principal. In 1944, while still a student, Berry was arrested for armed robbery after holding up 3 stores in Kansas City, Missouri, and then stealing a car at gunpoint with some friends. In his autobiography, Berry notes that his car had broken down, so he flagged down a passing car and stole it using a non-functional pistol. He was convicted and sent to the Algoa Correctional Center in Jefferson City, Missouri. There, he formed a singing quartet. The quartet became skilled enough that the authorities allowed them to perform outside the detention facility. Berry was released on his 21st birthday in 1947. On October 28, 1948, Berry married the Meta Toddy Suggs, who gave birth to their daughter, Darlene Ingrid Berry, on October 3, 1950. To support his family, Berry took on various jobs in St. Louis, including briefly working as a factory worker in 2 automobile assembly plants and as a janitor in the apartment building where they lived. Later, he trained as a beautician at the Poro College of Cosmetology, founded by Annie Turnbow Malone. By 1950, his circumstances had improved enough to purchase a small 3-room brick cottage with a bathroom on Whittier Street, which is now listed as Chuck Berry's house on the National Register of Historic Places. During the early 1950s, Berry supplemented his income by working with local bands in clubs around St. Louis. He had been playing blues since his teenage years and also received guitar lessons from his friend Ira Harris, which laid the foundation for his guitar style. In early 1953, Berry began collaborating with pianist Johnny Johnson in their trio. They performed various genres of music, including blues, ballads, and country music. Later, in 1954, Berry recorded songs like I Hope This Words Will Find You Well and Oh Maria with the group Joe Alexander and the Cubans. These songs were subsequently released as singles on the Ballad label. In May 1955, Berry went to Chicago and met Muddy Waters, who suggested he contact Leonard Chess of Chess Records. Berry thought Chess would be interested in his blues music, but Chess preferred Berry's song Ida Red. On May 21, 1955, Berry recorded a version of Ida Red titled Maybelline, with Johnny Johnson on piano, Jerome Green on maracas, Ebby Hardy on drums, and Willie Dixon on bass. Maybelline sold over 1 million copies, reaching number 1 on the Billboard Rhythm and Blues chart and number 5 on the Best Sellers in Stores chart on September 10, 1955. Berry said, "It came out at the right time when African American music was starting to cross over into the mainstream pop." The success of Maybelline paved the way for Berry to create more hits that solidified his position as a rock and roll pioneer. Songs like Roll Over Beethoven, Rock and Roll Music, and Johnny Be Good not only became major hits but also set the standard for the genre. Berry's energetic guitar playing and lyrics that depicted American teenage life made him a pop culture icon. In December 1959, Berry faced serious legal issues after being accused of violating the Mann Act. He was sentenced to prison, which temporarily halted his career. However, after his release in 1963, Berry returned to the music scene with support from British invasion bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, who covered his songs and introduced his music to a new generation. Berry released several successful singles in the mid-1960s, including No Particular Place to Go, You Never Can Tell, and Nadine. He also signed with Mercury Records, where he released several albums, including a live album supported by the Steve Miller Band. Berry was one of the first musicians inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at its inauguration in 1986. He was hailed for laying the groundwork not only for the sound of rock and roll but also for the rock and roll attitude. Berry is featured in several greatest of all time lists by Rolling Stone magazine. He ranked 5th in the 100 greatest artists of all time lists in 2004 and 2011, and the 2nd greatest guitarist of all time in 2023. Chuck Berry was not only known as one of the founders of rock and roll but also as an innovator who changed the direction of popular music. His influence can be felt in the work of many musicians who came after him. Berry continued to perform and record music until the end of his life, passing away on March 18, 2017. On March 18, 2017, Berry was found unresponsive at his home near Wentzville, Missouri. Emergency responders called to the scene were unable to revive him, and he was pronounced dead by his personal physician. TMZ posted an audio recording on its site where a 911 operator can be heard responding to a report of a cardiac arrest at Berry's home. Berry's funeral was held on April 9, 2017, at the pageant, in Berry's hometown of St. Louis. He was remembered with a public viewing by family, friends, and fans at the pageant. He was seen with a cherry red Gibson ES-335 guitar bolted to the inside of the casket lid and floral arrangements, including one sent by the Rolling Stones in the shape of a guitar. Afterward, a private service was held at the club to celebrate Berry's life and musical career, with Berry's family inviting 300 members of the public to join the service. His legacy lives on in every rock and roll note played around the world. As the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry not only transformed music but also left an indelible mark on global music culture. As a rock and roll pioneer, Berry had a profound influence on the development of music and the rock lifestyle. With songs like Maybelline, 1955, Roll Over Beethoven, 1956, Rock and Roll Music, 1957, and Johnny Be Good, 1958, Berry perfected the rhythm and blues into the core elements of rock and roll. He also utilized guitar solos and energetic stage performances, which had a significant impact on subsequent rock music.